I think that was incredibly well said. And that's actually a really good segue to kind of the next thing I want to talk about. What, what does it take for a guy to be in the position you were in, be at the tip of the spear, be in the 2-2 SAS? If they boot someone out, is it alcohol and drugs? Is it performance? Is it they changed as a person? Maybe they came back from war and it trauma changed them. What does it take where it's no questions asked? You do X, Y, and Z. You're leaving this place and you're never coming back.
Well, I mean, if someone gets thrown out,
Yeah,
uh, you know what, I can't speak from experience. I don't know anyone that was thrown out or asked to leave for those reasons, personally. So I really, I can't answer that question from a place of experience. Um, I have witnessed people being, uh, returned to unit for not being capable enough or making mistakes that were not in line with the values of the regiment. Definitely that's happened quite a bit. But as far as someone's mental health, I've never heard of anyone actually being discharged. I've never known anyone who's been discharged for that reason at all. So I honestly couldn't answer that.
so to what you just said there though about guys being returned to unit, is that just a case of where they're just not physically capable maybe anymore, or maybe their shooting skills have gone to shit, so in CQB
Uh,
you can't trust them? Or what would cause someone to be returned for unit?
um, yeah, if someone like, and this isn't specifics. This is just like this is an example of what could
Right.
be a reason. So if someone lost a weapon, for example, right? If you lose a weapon, if you uh, if you're if you get involved in some sort of crime, if you're arrested, go to court, and you're found guilty of a criminal offence, for example. If you're just not up to scratch, if your performance isn't good enough, if you just aren't performing at the level that is required, that's the reason to return someone to unit. If it's something that's involved with fucking theft or anything, it could be anything like that, but it's not very common. It isn't really common that people get returned to unit.
Are you so? I know I've had some guys talk about this on the record at both Delta and SEAL Team 6. If you get returned, if you leave, you go back to whatever your original, whether it's the Rangers, Green Berets, or the regular SEAL teams, and the reason for getting removed wasn't something sinister or criminal, you can come back, I believe, after 18 months. So the example that's always talked about is a guy had a negligent discharge. He itself admitted it, said I ND'd in this area. He was gone for 18 months. After 18 months, he could come back, which is exactly what he did. If you get returned to unit at the SAS, is there a road to come back, or is it just
Yeah, it's
see you
happened
later?
as well. There has been times of, again, very rare, but there has been people who I've personally known in the past, in my time in the regiment, that have been returned to unit then come back. Because at the end of the day, it's like if you look at someone who's on a football or a soccer field, as you call it, like there's an expression that I think is relevant in sports, like when it comes to like soccer players, football players. Um, one good performance doesn't make you a good player, and one bad performance doesn't make you a bad player. It's just something that happened. It's you deal with that at the time, but one negligent discharge doesn't make someone a bad soldier. It fucking happens, right? And it's we all fuck up. We all make fuck ups. None of us are perfect. I guess it depends on the enormity of the fuck up and maybe who knows about it, what they can potentially cover up and say, right, we'll keep this in house because it was a fuck up, but we'll keep it between us. That happens as well. But at the end of the day, we're all human. None of us pretend to be perfect. We're going to make mistakes, and that's something that I always embrace, and I always tell my clients is like you're going to fuck things up. Get used to it. Be okay with it, and just learn from the mistakes that you make, and that's part of life. So I think that when we expect people to be perfect, we're setting ourselves up for failure or disappointment because no one is.
Yeah, I mean, there's nobody on this planet that's perfect. I make mistakes. Trust me, my fiance would tell you I make mistakes all the time. So
We all do.
we all do. It's just like you said, you got to accept it and move on. Now, I've only ever interviewed two guys from the SAS. You being one of them, Melvin Downs being the other. Two of my all-time favorite interviews. This one's shaping up to be incredible as well. I know that you and Melvin know each other. I found Melvin to be absolutely fascinating, just incredibly entertaining guy. How long were you guys in the SAS at the same time? And what are your opinions on him as a man and then as a military operator?
So we'd have been in for like several years together. Like I think my whole time that I was in, he was still in. He joined way before me. He did it a lot longer than I did. Excuse me. But the coincidence there is that so Mel's a friend of mine. We speak sometimes on social media. I've not seen him for quite a long time now, but he doesn't live here. He doesn't live in Hereford. So I would see him very rarely, but we speak on occasion still. And the coincidence there is that Mel was actually the first SAS guy I ever saw. I ever in reality, like, for me anyway, as a young soldier, he was the first SAS guy that I ever physically saw with my own eyes. And it was when I was on my section commander's battle course in a place called Brecon. He was an instructor there. So he was one of the instructors on the course. And I remember, because it's very distinctive insignia, the blue stable belt with the sandy color, the beige berry. It really stands out, and it's something as a kind of wannabe SAS candidate at the time. It was something that I really looked up to, and I remember one of my friends saying, "There's always an SAS guy down there, like an instructor." So I was kind of looking for who the SAS guy was, and then I remember the first day I saw Mel, and just being in absolute fucking awe, because he's a physical specimen. He's always
Yeah.
been. I don't know how old Mel is now. He's quite a bit older than me, but he's still in really good shape, and he's like he's an animal. Like he's an absolute machine. He was kind of like, even in the SAS, he was like one of the guys who was like known as being fucking like a bit of a machine within that elite group at the time. And I guess the regiment sending someone to an external infantry battle school, they want to send the best. It's a bit like the DS, that are on selection. It's like usually the cream of the crop that get those positions. But there are certain guys that are just more cut out for that role, I think. And they're all very much of a similar ilk. It's always like the guys who are physically really fit. Not to say that other people are unfit, but there's guys that just are a little bit more physically advanced, I would say, because you have to be as a DS. So in this battle school that I did this course, Mel was the SAS instructor, and he wasn't my instructor, but he was one of the instructors in the same school. And I remember we did this. He did what's called a 3 miler. So you do like a 2 miler, a 3 miler, and you do a 5 miler, an 8 miler. And the 5 miler and 8 milers are squaded runs, but the 2 miler and the 3 miler are individual best effort. So there's a time limit that you've got to pass this test. So, and it's a pass or fail. And the 3 miler is a fucking beast. It is just horrible. It is absolutely horrible. It's disgusting because you've got to go like fuck. You got to, within the very word go, you've got to move, and you've got to keep moving at a certain speed, or you will not pass it. Like loads of people fail it. I'll happy and proud to say actually, I was the first over the line. I actually got the fastest time in the whole course, right? But I was really fit at the time myself. But we were at this meeting point at the bottom of this hill. So the start point for this 3 miler is at the bottom of this hill, and it starts, and you look up the hill, and it's like a zigzag range road, goes all the way up, and it seems to go on forever. Then eventually goes over the brow of the hill, and then you're into more undulating, kind of more flat terrain. But I'd say the first mile is on an incline, and Mel was like the hare. He was the guy who had to go first, and we were like, he led by example. So he would go, and then you had to try and catch him. No one did. But I remember just sat there, and then he's getting ready to go, and we were all watching him, and he just set off, and he just didn't fucking stop. Like to the top of he ran all the way with a pack in his back as well, and the pack wasn't light. He ran all the way to the top of this fucking hill, and everyone just like, holy fuck, it's insane. And because everyone ends up walking some of the incline, but he ran the whole way. I always remember thinking, fuck, that is a fucking specimen. of a man. And then you'd see him sometimes in the gym when you got a bit of time to go to the gym in the camp. He would be in there and he'd be like smashing himself in the gym as well. I just couldn't help but be impressed, you know. And after that, I ended up getting to know Mel in the regiment when I came to the regiment, and he was in a different squadron. He was in D squadron, I was in B. But you know, we got to know each other pretty well after that, and I told him that before as well, like over the years. But he was my first experience of what an SAS guy should be like, and that was like couldn't have a better example really than Mel. He's a phenomenal human being. Yeah.